Okay, today I want to go over scales for the KR7, Knit Radar 7 for the Silver Reed. There are a multitude of other brand names that go with Silver Reed. They all fit the same machines. This is the standalone KR7, and that means that it can fit on any of the machines that don't come with one built in. It comes with a set of scales that have an H on them. Let's see if I can get it to focus on that. There we go. So these are the H scales, which means they're the half-size scales. And please note that the 0 is in the center of the scale. Okay, now you're wanting to know exactly how long these scales are. They are, turn that back around. They are 34 and a half centimeters long. Okay, all right. So that being said, there is a second set of scales, which are the full-size scales for full-size patterns. And by that, I mean, notice that the 0 is at one end instead of in the center. That means that you can take a shirt and center the front on one side so that you have half of the shirt on the paper, and it will be a full-size pattern. Okay. Now, the paper itself is not going to be full size as far as what you're normally considering, because it's not going to show both sides of the shirt drawn out. It will only show one side of the shirt drawn. Now, the scales themselves are the exact same, except that, notice that I have 39 and 39 here. And if I take them and line them up, line the numbers up, you'll notice that they do line up, but that the full-size scale has only half as many marks because it's bigger, for a bigger pattern, than the half-size scale. Now, the nice thing about that is, you do have to order the blue scales or the full-size scales, and if you can't find them, I had to order these from England. I'm in the US, and they are available. They list them, however, as a fine gauge, probably because of this F, but that's not the case, and I'll show you the difference here in a moment. Fine gauge doesn't mean anything. These numbers, this 39 and this 39 here, means that's how many stitches your swatch gave you for 10 centimeters. Okay, so that's how you select which scale you're going to use. You don't select it by F12 or H12. You select it by whether or not it's a full-size or a half-size pattern, and the stitch on your swatches, the number of stitches you had for that 10 centimeters. Okay, so in this particular case, it would be 39 stitches for every 10 centimeters. Now, there is of course, multitude of knit radars. The other knit radar that I have to deal with is KR6. Now, KR6 uses these. Now, notice how much shorter the KR6 is. It works on the exact same principle. It came out, of course, before the KR7, and at that particular time, it was actually, a very good, and is actually a very good machine. It's just shorter, so the actual paper you can use in it is shorter. You cannot draw nearly as big on it as you can on the KR7 paper. Now, the KR7 paper is about 13 inches wide. Now, however, the difference was that the KR6 came with both sets of scales. I don't know why this one's wanting to move around. Notice, the black numbered scale has the 0 in the center. The white numbered scale has the 0 at one end, and they're both 39. Now, let me show you the difference when compared with these guys. Okay, this one goes with this one. Stop that. Now, notice that they are exactly the same. Notice that the numbers line up exactly. You just don't have as much to work with on this guy, simply because of how small the knit radar is. Okay, so you have that one, and then of course this one, if I line him up on here, notice the difference. This one, the blue or green, is the KR7 full-size pattern. Notice that on this one, it's just like the half-size pattern. The white 5 for the KR6 is not a full-size pattern scale. It is still a half-size. So if I line it up here, you'll notice. There we go. So it is still a half-size scale, even though it is lined up on one side. So the KR6 was designed specifically for only half-size patterns, whereas the KR7 can do full-size patterns if you can fit it on 13 inches. So, you know, that's your caveat. You've got to be able to fit the pattern within, well, actually it's not going to be 13 inches because the paper's 13 inches edge to edge, and obviously the scale doesn't go edge to edge. So it's probably going to be more like on 12 inches. If you can fit a half of a pattern, full-size pattern, that is symmetrical on 12 inches wide paper, then you can actually use the full-size scales and the full-size patterns in the KR7. You cannot do that with the KR6. If you could get it within the length of the scales in the machine, I don't remember exactly how wide the paper is, but measuring just really quickly, it's only 22.5 centimeters wide as far as the scale is concerned, and the scale doesn't measure 22.5 centimeters wide. The scale is only physically 22.5 centimeters wide. So more like 21.5 centimeters. If you can fit it in there, you could use it that way. But it's designed for half-size patterns. So even though my KR6 is in a fine gauge machine, the scales are exactly the same because the scales mean the number of stitches in 10 centimeters, not the gauge of the machine. So the difference in the scales pertains to the type of pattern you're using and the number of stitches per 10 centimeters, which is the gauge of your garment, not the gauge of the machine. So hopefully that was informative and useful.